Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, today we're going to continue our series on great inventors by talking about one of your picks, our friend Alexander Graham Bell.
Why do you say it's my pick whenever you're not happy about it? I feel like you're kind of setting this up for failure.
I want everybody to know who's the reason that we're talking about Alexander Graham Bell.
Okay.
By his friends, known as Alec. Did you know that?
I always thought they called him Old Belly.
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 I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means either.
Anyways, born in Edinburgh, Scotland.
Yeah, you're a little bit Scottish, aren't you?
I'm a little bit Scottish.
You went to Scottish land.
I went to Scottish.
Land.
Yes, the land of the Scots.
What did you think of Scotland?
It was awesome.
Really?
Of the places I went last year.
Yeah,
this year?
This year actually. Yeah, this year.
Was it this year?
Yeah,
No, it was last
either
last
way.
year. Anyways,
Scotland was your favorite.
Scotland was my favorite.
Okay,
Yes,
cool.
It was cool.
I like that.
Cold, rainy, windy, but nice.
I'm not sure that makes sense, but all right.
So let's get into a little bit of his history. What do you think?
I hope we do.
You hope we do?
Yeah, because it turns out the cat didn't invent too much. I
Maybe.
was like, this dude made telephones. How could this not be like the best person ever? And then when you do some research,
Not the best person ever. Actually, a really good person.
Great
Just
person.
not necessarily that many inventions.
yes, exactly.
Though I saw he had 18 patents for himself and 12 that he shared with other people.
Yeah, he was.
So that's pretty
He was
good.
kind of like the Elon Musk of his day, where he would, you're gonna yell at me so hard about having my computer mic on or speaker
I
on.
mean, only because we went through it like 2 minutes ago.
That's so funny.
All right,
All
so
right,
let's get into this.
shoot.
He went to the Royal High School in Edinburgh, but he quit at 15 because that's what smart people do, right?
Apparently, yeah.
And then he got into the University College London, but he quit that one too because
How
his
do you get
family.
into college if you don't finish high school?
He took some sort of test. They said, "Yep, you're pretty smart. I bet you're going to invent the telephone someday. But
Interesting.
we'll let you in." And he quit after he moved to Canada.
Okay.
After both of his brothers, Edward and Melville, died of tuberculosis.
Man, the TBs was pretty bad back then, wasn't
I
it?
guess so. Isn't that what? Who was the cowboy guy?
Yeah, Val
Kilmer.
Val Kilmer. That's so funny.
Doc Holliday.
Yeah, Doc Holliday.
Yeah,
the
had that
TVs.
too. I think that was probably around the same time frame, give or take. Anyways, so he moved to Canada, then he decided to move to Boston because he doesn't want to be in America, right?
Yep.
And he taught at a Boston school for deaf mutes. And then he went to the Clark School and for the deaf. I have for the deaf in my notes.
For the deaf.
Oh, this is going well.
You're not good at the spellings.
No.
The interesting thing about his connection, and I did not know this, was the reason why, so his mother and his future wife, who I think you have some notes on, they were both deaf. So his grandfather and his father both worked on inventions and I'll say technology for people with hearing impairments.
Yeah, and teaching, and yeah, they were big in that. His mother, like you said, was pretty super deaf, and his wife also was hearing impaired. This is a great story. So
Okay.
two good parts about the wife. Let me go into this.
Okay.
During the time that he was working at one of the schools, he worked with this young hottie named Mabel Hubbard,
Mabel Hubbard.
where they fell in love, even though she was only 15.
Yeah, you know what? People back then, they got married a lot earlier, but still.
I get it, but she was
he
15
like 10 years
and
older.
he was, yeah. So in 10 years, I mean, not a big deal when you're like 60 and 50, but when you're 15 and 25,
so
it's a little bit
little
creepy.
creeper going on
Yeah,
there.
they had 4 kids though. 2 unfortunately died at birth, but fun love story about them. Do you want to hear
I
this?
love fun love stories,
It
James.
said that the telephone was invented for love. So let me read this.
I got to hear this.
Okay, Mabel Hubbard, the 15-year-old, was the daughter of a wealthy Massachusetts family, the Hubbards, if you didn't pick that one up.
I did.
And he fell in love with her. So Gardner Green Hubbard was daddy, and he was the first president of the National Geographic Society. So this guy was a smart dude as well. And he opposed the marriage to Bell because he was poor. He's like,
Okay.
I don't want my daughter marrying some poor guy. But only a few days after establishing the Bell Telephone Company and becoming super rich, Bell got to marry his daughter. For a wedding present, this is the cool part. For a wedding present, he gave her all but 10 of his 1,507 shares in the company.
Oh,
Yeah, that's pretty cool, right?
that is really nice.
Yep. And then on his desk, they say that he kept a photograph with on the back it was written, "The girl for whom the telephone was invented."
Wow.
But I mean, how about that? Like, you make one of the biggest inventions ever, and you give all of your shares in your company that have, let's say, the monopoly on this to your wife. That's a pretty good deal.
When my wife and I got married, the only thing I gave her was about $10,000 in credit card debt.
That was very responsible of you.
I'm sorry. Wow, this is going nowhere fast.
Nowhere fast. All right, so let's move on. What do you have to tell me about this guy?
So a couple interesting things. So I have quotes again that I want to talk about towards
you love
the
the
end.
quotes.
I love the quotes.
Okay, we're going to do that at the end.
So first of all, did you know, and this is all kind of like did you know that the measurement of sound was named after him, the decibel?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I did not.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was, so the decibel.
Why didn't they just leave it at the bell?
I'm not sure.
Oh.
Another thing, did you know that he
didn't.
was responsible for connecting Helen Keller and Annie Sullivan?
No, I didn't know that
So
either.
apparently,
Why did I miss this?
it wasn't on like the wiki page.
I went to other pages.
I did too, but so he connected the two of them because apparently he got connected to Helen Keller through the school that he was working at and the school he was connected to, and he connected Helen to Annie, who was this amazing tutor. And actually, in the book, I forget the name of the book that Helen Keller wrote, she actually thanked Alexander Graham Bell
Really?
He said
For
she
hooking them
wouldn't
up.
be where she was if it wasn't for him.
It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Next,
Oh, there's more.
did you know one of his inventions was a metal detector?
I did know that.
And
You're kind of,
do you know the
you're kind of
president?
screwing up the timeline here.
Okay, we'll skip that
No,
one.
no.
Did you know that he faced over 600 lawsuits over his telephone patent?
And he rocked them all.
Like 4 of them made it to the Supreme Court. In all cases, he actually won the case.
Well, that's kind of a good. Do you have more? Did you knows?
We'll come back to the invention thing.
Okay.
I don't want to jump the gun.
All
here.
right. Well, that's just a good segue into the next portion of
Okay.
his history, where all of these lawsuits happened. Well, he also had a lot of, we'll say, rivals in inventing.
Oh, a ton.
A ton. And 2 prominent ones. The first one was our good friend Thomas Edison.
Yeah, I didn't get this one.
No? What do you mean?
Like, you would think that they'd be like friendly.
Well, they weren't. I
Not
mean,
at
I don't know
all.
if they were not friendly, but they competed against each other.
Yeah.
So the big focus for Bell and Edison at this time was the telegraph machine.
Mm-hmm.
And what they really wanted to be able to do was transmit several messages over a
More
single
than one,
wire.
yeah.
Which doesn't really seem all that cool to me, but that's fine, you know, the telephone seems cooler. But anyways, Joseph Stearns invented the duplex. Guess how many messages it could transfer?
Do?
Do.
2?
Yes, very good, Luke. You were a lot smarter than I think.
Yes.
Anyways, Western Union Telegraph Company, we all know Western Union,
Yeah.
gobbled that right up, and they owned the market then on telegraphs. And so then they hired someone called Thomas Edison to keep working on trying to increase the number of transitions that could go through one wire.
Yeah.
Transmissions that could
You
go
know,
through
the
one
interesting thing about like the telegraph and even phones in general, back then and today, I have no clue how they work.
wire. I assume it's magic?
I mean, like when it was wires, how does my voice go through a piece of wire? Like, I get the string in the soup cans because it's vibration, right? But like,
It's not just like an electrical charge or something?
yeah, but like turning your voice into electrical data and then reconverting it back to, and
We
again,
do have an episode on the radio which kind of helps explain
that might help me. Maybe I should listen
But we could
to
look
it.
into how does the telephone
I mean,
work
it's
sometime as
it's
well.
so, like when we did the medical thing the last week, not to give a plug, but the medical imaging,
Yeah.
it is so incredibly complex.
It
And
is.
The fact that
Oh
they
my
were doing
goodness.
this back then,
And that they can think to do that stuff.
yeah, that's crazy. to me.
Yeah. So one more rivalry he had was some guy named Gray. So when Bell patented the phone, just hours later, he filed a caveat, which is a statement of concept on a similar method.
Okay.
So Bell won the patent, obviously, and this is where a bunch of stuff went down where, oh, well, I invented it first, no, you stole information from me, back and forth, and all of these lawsuits then occurred.
Okay.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, kind of.
So, kind of interesting. This is as interesting as old Belly gets here. So let's take a break before we finish up any more of his history and his other inventions.
Yes.
And let's take a break for a word from our sponsor.
Oh, I love. Do we have sponsors this week?
We aren't even going to pretend like we have a sponsor this week because I have an enormous announcement.
Do we need a drum roll for this?
No, because it will really screw up our mic.
Okay, sorry.
So let me go ahead and read this to you.
Enormous announcement.
Enormous.
This is. I don't know about
This
any
is
of
big news for everyone. I am happy to announce that our friend Luke has now officially been the host for over half of the Unprofessional
Oh my
Engineering
goodness
episodes.
gracious.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It really
I
is.
wasn't keeping track. That's
Yeah.
great.
You are now over half of the episodes.
So does that mean now, like, if we actually start making money, I get
Yeah, you get a cut.
with the $7 and half a stick of gum? How do you divide
Well,
that
after
up?
taxes, you get a quarter stick of gum and maybe a chicken wing. I don't know. But
Thank you
yeah.
for recognizing me
I-
with that, James.
if
That's
I-
awfully nice of you.
Yeah, if any of you want to congratulate Luke, why don't you email him at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. He might even send you some sweet stickers.
Oh, heck yeah, I'll send them some sweet. We got some new stickers on the way. I'm
Oh, we
super excited
do.
about. Not going to talk about
No.
them. They're going to be revealed at AU.
Boy, that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it is.
All right, so anyways, that was that. Let's move
Wow.
on.
Yes, please.
All right, let's see. Is there anything else interesting about his history? So, one thing, I'll summarize the rest of his history up. The phone was a success.
Yes.
He got bored with it. He sold off basically his whole stake in owning the phone, which seems strange to me because I would want it for bajillions of dollars.
Yeah, heck yeah.
At the time, somebody, Western Union, I believe, wanted to, or didn't want to buy the phone. They offered it to them for like a measly sum and they wouldn't do it. And then 2 years later, they were like, oh, we would buy this for $25 million. And at that point, so for $100,000, Hubbard, the dad of the wife, and Bell and all of their partners offered to sell the patent outright to Western Union for $100,000, and they turned them down. And then 2 years later, they offered $25 million and thought it would be a bargain, and the company wouldn't sell it to them anymore. So that's how big and how fast this thing grew over
That's
time.
2 years later?
2 years later, it was considered to be worth
impressive.
that much more. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, and by 1886, so all of this was happening in like the early 1880s, 150,000 people in the United States owned a telephone. So kind of a big deal.
I'd say.
So enough about Bell and his history.
I have one more history thing
Oh,
that I want to
good.
do. And,
Please
and,
do.
And this is like the
Oh yeah, this is the one we skipped, right?
No.
Did we know?
This is so he died in 1922 in his adopted home of Nova Scotia, which I have a plan
Nova
to go to Nova
Scotia.
Scotia.
That seems like a desolate kind of place
Yeah,
to
but
me.
see, we're gonna
Is
do
that
some
not true?
camping. It looks interesting. So he died in Nova Scotia in 1922, and guess what they did in North America? So Canada and the United States for 1 minute.
What?
Telephones in all of North America went silent for
Oh,
1
I
minute.
did see that.
Could you
Yeah, that's pretty
imagine
nice.
Every single person that now, granted, there wasn't nearly as many people back then as now that have phones, but every single phone in North America for 1 minute did not ring.
I feel like this is made up. Like, how do you know?
Because Google told me.
Well, I know, but I mean, did they somehow pull all the plugs so that phone calls couldn't be made?
I would
or
bet that, like,
this sounds made up to me.
no,
Like it
I mean,
sounds
Bell,
like
Bell Telephone definitely had the market. They were just like, okay, just pull them all.
I bet there was
Hopefully, no one had an emergency.
I bet there.
Why isn't this working?
I bet there was some kid with a can string thing calling someone at that time.
Probably.
Suckers. I don't like that. I don't believe it happened.
I do.
Okay. Well,
I totally believe it.
let's move on to his other inventions. So go ahead, tell me about some of his inventions, would you? Because I feel like I talked about his history Because that's what I tend to do, is just kind of ramble on about history.
Yes, you do. So,
do you want to go back to your did you know? Because that's
yeah,
really
so
an
it's a
exciting
kind of a
one.
did you know. So he actually invented a rudimentary metal detector to save the life of what president? This president,
Garfield.
He was shot.
James Jimmy Garfield.
So J. Bird Garfield.
He hates Mondays, by the way.
Does. The cat gets shot, right?
The cat.
And back then, the way they would like get the bullets out, so he lived, he survived the shooting. The way they would get bullets out is they would basically like stick their fingers inside of you and like instruments. And he kept on, and he
I don't see anything wrong with that.
Exactly. But hygiene and infection was crazy. So he was getting sicker and sicker from all this like exploratory bullet removal surgery. And they couldn't find it, so he invented a rudimentary metal detector to locate.
On the spot, basically.
Like within a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Because apparently he got shot and was getting sick for like weeks after the shooting because they could not get this bullet out of him. So that was the first, I thought, kind of interesting invention.
Do you know who shot James Garfield?
No, I don't.
Charles Guiteau.
He
Sounds French.
He sounds not nasty.
He sounds like a shooter to me.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like a nice person.
Did you see that the metal detector that he invented, though very cool and amazing that he did it so quickly, didn't work very well? Because of the coil coils in the bed, and that was
And they didn't even think about
giving, some feedback or something. Or so this is what Bell said when it didn't work.
I probably should have done a little more research and see if he saved the president, if he lived or died.
He died.
I don't even know. So he actually developed a wireless telephone. It actually used, and it was wireless in the sense that it was basically reflecting sound. It wasn't wireless like using satellites or anything like that, but it was this device where you would speak into a cone, it would focus the sound, it would bounce off of a panel and go up in a different direction. So it was wireless to the next room, but not wireless to the point where it was like I could call you down the street kind of thing.
Oh, that's not super useful, huh?
No, not at all. I mean, actually, really.
This is, again, making me question how great of an inventor he was. I mean, obviously, he's way smarter than us.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not setting the bar real high. Right?
No,
how about the photophone? Did you?
Yeah, the photophone was interesting.
So he claims this is the greatest invention I have ever made, greater than the telephone. Which
I didn't catch that.
I feel like that's a bold statement to make.
The telephones.
It also kind of seems like sour grapes to me. Like he's like, I sold off my telephone idea. I didn't make as much money as I could have, but this one's even better. I'm still great. That's what I was getting from that statement. Okay. Anyways, it basically set the groundwork for fiber optics 100-something years later.
Okay.
But when they were doing this, they had optical wireless communication, and he transmitted a wireless message by light beam over 200 meters at that time. That's nutso. Like from the roof of one building to another, like craziness.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to go back. His partner, not his partner, but his assistant, I can't remember his name. It was Thomas something.
They're all named Thomas back then.
They're all named Thomas.
That?
Well, I don't even know if that's what his name was, but I'm just going with Thomas because they were all named Thomas back then. You can actually listen to a recording. Thomas Watson is his name. Okay. You can listen to a recording of him describing the invention of the telephone and like the first calls made, which is pretty cool. Let's see. What else did he work on, Luke?
So he worked on what they say was the predecessor to cassette tapes, floppy disks, and fiber optics.
Okay, so we talked about fiber optics. Do you know any more about cassette tapes or floppy disks?
So where was it? So the photophone was there with the wireless optics, but he actually, where is it? I'm drawing a blank.
The fun part is I know what he's looking at, and I know it doesn't go into any more detail, but I'm going to just let him sit here and stew.
You're right. It only goes
So how about
into
you
detail
keep
on the
looking at
photophone.
that while I talk about the world's fastest speedboat?
Oh, I got that, the hydrofoil.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, and right?
That seems really like it seems like he was
all over the place.
Yeah, like
little ADD kind of guy.
What you're good at.
Yeah.
Right? He was good at hearing and...
He made the world's fastest speedboat, so he's apparently good at that too.
Yeah,
and the thing that I liked about...
Fastest then.
Well, fastest then. It still went 70.86 miles per hour back in 1919. That's pretty good. And the best part about this, in my opinion, which is really all that matters for this show, is that the building and the testing was on the lake outside of his home. So it's basically his lake that he's testing all of this on, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
I'd like to have a lake.
I only know one person who has a lake in his property, and he rides jet skis around on it.
We do have a friend that has a lake in his property, doesn't he?
Yeah, we do. Let's see. He also did some work with airplanes. Did you see that?
I didn't see the airplanes. I saw this kite device that he invented. So you know the box kites?
The box kites, yes.
He invented one that was made up with basically pyramids and triangular shapes.
Pyramids and triangular shapes.
Yeah, and again, I was looking at that and I was like, it seems like a really odd collection of things to invent.
It is. Oh, it absolutely
like
is.
A kite, a hydrofoil, the telephone.
I think what happened, so here's my thought on it, is he made a lot of money on the phone, right?
Yeah.
And he married into a lot of money.
He did. National Geographic money.
Yeah.
That's big money.
Yeah. And after that, he was like, it's kind of like me. If I had a lot of money, I'd be like, done with my job. I'm just going to dabble in whatever I like to do, like in between binging on Netflix and other things.
So you'd probably make, let me guess, you'd make salsa?
I would make salsa. I'd increase my gardening.
I don't know anything else that you really like to do as a hobby.
I don't have a lot of hobbies.
Okay.
I
so
work
lots
a lot.
of salsa. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Okay, so airplanes. Let me talk about this real quick.
I didn't get that.
He made, it was a Canadian thing, because this was when he was in Canada. He made, or helped make, the Silver Dart. Now, I vaguely remember in our History of Airplanes episode that we talked about the Silver Dart. I think maybe we did. So you guys go back.
We talked about a bell, but I don't think it was related to him. I don't remember the Silver Dart.
Well, go back and listen to the Airplanes episode.
It's good either way.
Right, and let me know if I did or didn't, because I'm not going to go back and listen to it. Nothing worse than hearing your own voice, right? But anywho, this guy is working on the aircraft, made the first powered flight in Canada in February 1909, which is pretty good, but the Wright brothers actually got ahead of him on flight. But he still kept looking into it, which I thought.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And wasn't it, I read something that was, where was it? Was it remote controlled? No. I thought I read somewhere where that was remote controlled.
I don't know about any remote controls he did. That seems out of his range.
It does a little bit.
So let's take another break for this week's Luke's Terrible Engineering.
Okay, so I'm so mad about this one.
Okay.
And I kind of have A. Bell to blame for this.
A. Bell.
A. Bell, that's what I call him.
Le'Veon Bell?
No, Alexander
A. Bell.
Although I do like Le'Veon. So here's the deal. So yesterday, at about noon, my sister decides to do a group text with 17 people.
17.
I know none of these people other than my sister.
So you don't even have their numbers in your phone?
And it's just a bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
And I proceed for the next, from about noon until about midnight last night, to receive, I'm guessing, 200 random texts from people replying, and like people are trying to get out of the group text, people are trying to get into the group text, and my terrible invention is group texting technology. It is the stupidest. If you want to talk to that many people, James, put it on Twitter, put it on Facebook, use WhatsApp, whatever you want to do. But I was so...
I hate WhatsApp.
And I do too. I kept on like leaving the conversation, and I think because people were using different phones, like iPhones and Androids,
pop up, put you back
it
on.
would come in differently, and I literally told my sister, I called her like 3 or 4 times, and I was like, for the love of God, please stop. You have to literally tell people to stop because it's not stopping. So my terrible, whoever did it, the folks at Apple, the folks at Android, the folks at Bell Telephone, whoever...
Western Union,
whoever, Helen Keller, whoever invented group texting they're the stupidest people that ever existed.
Wow.
I'd get a group text with like me, my wife, and my daughter, 3 people kind of keep in touch. You go more than 3 people.
You should put a limit on it. You're saying cap the group text max.
Yes. How do you feel about group texting?
I don't usually group text a lot.
But when you get on one?
I don't like it. Like you're saying, when it starts popping like all of these numbers you don't know. My wife and her friends do a group text, and I mean, there's times when her phone is just like exploding because they're all shooting back and forth. But
I'm on a barbecue group text. It's
Ooh,
actually
yum.
okay. It's not
Yeah.
bad because just like once a week, one of the guys on the group text sends a picture or a recipe. That I don't mind.
Okay. So anyways, that was
Sorry.
Luke's terrible engineering for the week.
Yeah.
Before we get into your quotes, I know you said you have the quote game. I wanted to talk about National Geographic, like you said.
This was super interesting.
Yeah, so Nat Geo magazine, which we all know and love, was under his father-in-law's control when he was stooping his daughter, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it started to fail. It was really struggling. But by this point, old Alec Bell was pretty rich and famous and well thought of. And he became the second president of the club that ran this. And so he immediately went and tried to revitalize this. And he made a strong focus on great photography and kind of like pictures of life in action, as he said it. And that revitalized the magazine and brought it to great fame like we know it today.
And did you know the slogan that they used for the longest time?
The world and all that is in it.
I remember that on the front of like National Geographic magazines.
I don't remember. I
used to love National Geographic magazines.
I only remember the issue of like the naked women on the front of it. Do you remember that one? Aborigine women?
I vaguely, but
yes.
my parents had a ton of them, and I just remember it was just a cool. You could like go to a different country just by flipping, and that's the cool thing about.
I remember the fold-out middle of like the different sea animals and the whale, how big it was, and like the things they could find in their bellies that they ate. I remember that.
Amazing stuff.
I love that. All right, so let's look at some quotes before we wrap things up.
Okay, so I'm gonna do like my 3 or 4 that I like, and then you gotta
And then I'm gonna pick out which tattoo I'm getting.
You gotta pick out which forearm tattoo you're getting. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
When one door closes, another door opens.
That was him?
I don't know. He added a bunch of extra stuff to it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's one.
Okay, next.
The next one is before anything else, anything, James, preparation is the key to success.
Did he actually say anything, James?
No, I was adding.
I liked it a lot more when it was really personalized to me. Preparation, okay, I like that.
Sometimes we stare so long at a door that is closing that we're too late to see it open again.
He's really big on the doors.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Not the band.
Yeah, exactly. The most successful men in the end are those who succeed in the result of steady.
No, I don't even need you to finish that one.
Yeah, that was a tough one. A nation that is secure, the nation that secures the control of the air will ultimately control the world.
I like that. That seems pretty profound.
It is.
It may be true.
It could be true.
I don't know. I'm not a great
And then last
military
one.
mind.
America is a country of investors and inventors, and the greatest nation and the greatest of inventors are the newspaper men.
Wow.
So he's really dogging
he doesn't like
fake
the press.
news.
He'd
be like fake news.
Also, he's not even American, so there's that.
Okay, so what's your
also,
favorite?
we've also said that pretty much all inventors aren't American. I think we've said that.
Aren't.
What was the one about preparing? I think that's what I'm getting.
Before anything else. Anything, James. Preparation is the key to success.
That's the one I'm getting tattooed on me.
Now you got to get anything else. You got to do the double and the double on there.
Absolutely.
So
that's what I'm going with.
I like that one too.
All right. So with that, do you have anything else?
No, I don't.
Anything else?
This was interesting, but I think what we're both finding, so this is like our 3rd or 4th inventor podcast we've done, is most inventors, other than the Musk.
The Musk is really leading the pack.
The Musk got a ton of different things he's doing, but most of like the old school inventors, they're kind of like one-hit wonders.
And then they try a lot and fail.
Yeah,
like
and then,
a bunch of losers.
They make like, so they do one thing like really good, and then they're like, maybe I could do something else really good. So
or you could be like Da Vinci and basically don't do anything good.
You just draw cool pictures.
Right. All right, well, we're going to continue this series. We're going to find another great inventor eventually. But until then, I think we should call it a day.
Sounds good.
All right, talk to you later.
See ya.